Hi, I'm Mandy, and welcome to the next episode of As the Walker Turns. And I'm here with my friend Jared. And today,
So good to be here as always.
I'm sure it is for you, isn't it?
It's good for you too, right?
Yeah, no, I need help. I always need help. And I think today we're going to talk about the guidebook, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It's your first published literary achievement, right?
I guess I can say author. I've never said that ever before. So sure. Expectations, small book, okay, 28 pages. We're not talking Steinbeck. It's not a manifesto.
You can read it in
An hour. Sure, long, sure. Not judging your reading style.
I mean, sometimes it's slower than
Sure. So we're gonna be talking a little bit about that. So I think your question to me earlier was like, why did I write it?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like, and here's I can just gonna say I'm neurotic at times, but I was actually on vacation. It was like 4th of July, and I was like, I feel like I need to write a book.
Wait, we need to rewind and set the tables. Okay. So where were you on vacation? Because this may explain the then what after.
I was at home, so I wasn't really vacationing.
Okay.
I had a lot of extended family in town. Also,
explaining everything. Like, of course you wrote a book.
Sure, why not?
Okay.
This is what one does when they're at home on vacation with extended family.
Yes.
I just felt like I needed to write a book.
Was there a pandemic occurring?
No.
Okay.
This was 23.
Okay.
No, there's really no excuse for that other than I just kind of felt like, yeah, I need to put all this stuff. People call me all the time for years since,
You're like a self-help desk.
Yeah, I'm like 1-800 call Mandy when someone needs help for senior living. And I was like, if my family and friends have this, maybe other people have questions. And I know there's a lot of literature out there about, senior living, but never I've seen anything from an insider's perspective saying, hey, as an insider, these are the things you need to look for, because I'm looking for it right now for my own mom. So, and I love this industry. This is not a slam on the industry in any way, but it's just getting people educated on what we do and why we do what we do, so that, again, expectations are met from both sides, and you're not coming in with blinders on, because like we said before, sometimes these are emergency situations, and 28 pages is well worth your time, for an hour, or maybe 2 hours to read it, so that you're going in with more info than probably most of the public does.
That's what's so great about this, in my opinion, is because it is only 28 pages. It doesn't matter if you have a long runway or if this is a decision you've got to make yet this week. There are practical things in here that you can take away and be like, boom, I'm ready to go, and I'm a much more informed potential consumer.
Yeah, this is taking 20 years worth of knowledge and just like summarizing it in small chunks that you can take what you want from it or leave it at the table. I can put that in the book. Like, there's no judgment here. You use what you need to use at the times you need to use it. And maybe it's not just the initial move in. Maybe it's, you're 2 years into this journey and you're like, why am I struggling over, this particular situation? Pick it back up and read it and see if there's any insights that you can then use that to navigate some conversations with your family members or staff.
So, future vacation plans. Are they going to be better, or are we looking to break out? Are we going to continue writing books over vacation?
I don't know. I was going to go to Italy this year, and then I decided to host an Italian exchange student for a year. So I feel like I'm doing everything backwards. So
you're just bringing.
I need to go out. I need to go do something. No, Italy is definitely on the list. Actually, my mom had made a comment a couple of weeks ago that she wants to take the family like on a big, like she called it her one last cruise with everybody together. And so, I was like, well, okay, where have you never gone that you want to go? She goes, I want to go to Scotland and Ireland. And I said, well, then that's where we should go.
Huh.
Let's see if we can make that happen.
Right.
So maybe Italy. I need to go somewhere. I need to do some things.
You need to.
Yeah.
So, okay. Yes. Well, let's, the guidebook, let's unpack a couple of the things. This is probably going to take more than one episode, but let's start at the beginning.
Sure.
They say.
Sure.
So, if I remember correctly, the first chapter is about who owns and runs these communities.
Yes.
So why is that important? Like, I don't think most consumers would have thought about that, or had that as a point of concern about essentially who is on the ownership side. Why does it matter?
It matters for several reasons. This is more, senior living is way more than just like an apartment building. And it's different than a hotel. So like if you're in the community, they'll say, oh yeah, we're, this is kind of, sometimes they'll say, oh, it's a cruise ship on land. Sure, that's I think the marketing gimmick. Or they'll say, sorry, I'm laughing because my VP of marketing is behind the camera laughing at me. Anyway, they also say that this is a blend of hospitality, like hotel and healthcare, which I think is true. So marrying those worlds, like if you go into, let's just say a Hilton hotel, you know that there's going to be certain expectations that you're going to have, or Four Seasons versus like a Motel 6, right? Like your expectations are going to be set. When you're looking at apartment buildings or any kind of real estate, there are organizations out there such as REITs where their whole business plan is to build a community, maybe fill it up halfway, maybe 75% with residents, and then they flip them. They're actually under contract to flip them. And when we talked about in a previous episode is that when you have a management change or an ownership change, it's extremely disruptive to the community. You're talking all new software, policies, procedures. Maybe they're going to take out the entire management team. I mean, every transition's a little bit different. So for me, I would want to know, like, how long has the staff been here and what's the long-term plan for the building? Are these owners going to be here for 10, 15 years? Or like how long I think my mom's going to live here? Or is this truly just a real estate investment that, that they're going to change out people based on, their investment and what their investors are expecting? There is a difference between owner, like a single owner operator versus a gigantic conglomerate that's publicly traded. You would see that different from, a Target. I love Target. I shop at Target, but that is run very differently than a small boutique where it's a single owner. So you have to decide as a consumer, is that important to you or not? To me, it is important, not necessarily because who's making money on the back end, because again, these are businesses just like hotels or anything else. But to me, it's about that continuity of leadership and those policies, and that the least amount of change for my mom, the better. That's what I'm looking at that.
Well, I mean, you were talking about that in a past episode relative to transfer trauma.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, I don't think this is something that most people have thought of, but transfer trauma obviously occurs when you're moving, but I'm assuming smaller degrees of that occur when there is widespread change and staff and different things. And I mean, everybody gets used to their daily routine. And if that's no matter your age,
Right.
And it's like, if you get interrupted with that, with a wide, huge wholesale staff change, I could see how that would have huge implications.
Yeah, because when you go to sell a building, just like you sell your home or sell your car or whatever, it's that additional responsibility, that scrutiny, that there's a lot at stake here. So, from an executive director's perspective, the people running the buildings, you're going to have realtors in here, appraisers, you're going to have tons of bank people. They're going to require so many reports out of you in order to get the financing, or in order to, have the building come in how they want it to come in so that the next person can buy it. And when you're focusing on that as an executive director and not on the care, it's extremely distracting. Or if you have a new management company coming in, everyone has to be rehired. Imagine doing all new hire paperwork for 150 employees, all new benefits, all of that takes away from the day-to-day grind, which is hard enough as it is. So I just put that into perspective, like know where the community is from a very big picture perspective. Are they selling? Do they have new owners? Do they think they're going to be stable? Sometimes the teams won't know, but if they say, oh yeah, we've had the same operator for 5 years, hopefully, you're in a situation where it'll be stable.
So do you think it matters as to like, if this is part of a larger community in terms of there are several different ones, or if it's just a single operator?
I think there's pluses and minuses for both. I've worked for big operators. I've worked for small, operators before. I think that, I think the benefit of working for a big operator is they have scale. They're able to implement maybe some software systems or some tools that, they can get a lot less expensive, and then they're able to deploy them, company wide. But that also takes the personalization out of that process, right? So when I shop at Target or Walmart or, whatever, it's the same products, probably in the same place, as opposed to a boutique. So that's really a personal choice. When you're talking about a big corporation, population, there's going to be a lot of layers of management,
Mhm.
which they have to have. I mean, I was there, I did that. But when you're small, you know, as the CEO, I'm able to go into my communities, you know, every, you know, 3 to 4 weeks, if not more, depending on what's going on. So I get to know the residents, I get to know the staff personally, and that being the decision maker helps the communities be able to pivot in times of need a lot faster than having to go through, you know, 20 layers. Yeah, we're a lot more nimble, able to pivot. So I think that's a benefit, but we also don't have the scale that some other operators do.
So, I believe one of the other things covered in the guidebook is basically the types of communities.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
start at the beginning.
yeah. Long ago in a land far, far away. You know, senior living is, I think it gets lumped into.
There's a lot of confusion.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of confusion. They're like, oh yeah, that's just an old folks home, or
Right.
that's a nursing home. You see that a lot, that, you know, oh yeah, my mom lives in a nursing home, when in fact, maybe she lives in independent living. So just to kind of give like a broad, you know, overview, you're gonna have kind of a new project out there that's called, 55 or 55 plus or active living. Really, that's for residents, and the average age of that is actually like in the 70s, believe it or not. So those are going to be more like an apartment building where they aren't going to really have maybe, you know, they don't provide dining or, you know, activities or things like that. But it's a great area for your really independent residents to kind of interact and have that socialization, which is critically important. Then you're going to have communities that are independent living, and you may have dining venues. They may have the ability to do transportation. You know, they'll certainly have activity programs. So that's just going to be another option for people that, you know, may not need that hands-on care. The benefit of independent living is that they can bring in home health, hospice agencies, those kind of physical therapy into their homes to do that kind of care. You can also do that in active adult. Then you get into assisted living, and anything beyond assisted living. So assisted living, memory support, and skilled nursing are going to be regulated heavily by the different states and the different government entities. So assisted living, those are going to be residents that are going to need you know, either more oversight, or they're going to need, you know, potentially hands-on care, whether that's medication management, you know, prompting for showers, maybe hands-on showers, all the way to end of life care. And again, every state has a little bit different in terms of nuances with their regulations. Memory support is going to offer everything that assisted living has, but it's going to be in a secured environment. Generally speaking, most communities that have assisted living may have a smaller area for memory support, because those residents tend to move over. But sometimes you'll have communities that are just memory support. Maybe it's like a, you know, 60 bed or whatever, just memory support. That's all they do, which is great as well. So the difference between AL and memory support, the residents may look similar and have similar needs, but it's going to be secure, and you're going to have a focus more on dementia, Alzheimer's, those types of things. And then skilled nursing is going to be your highest level of care. And this one's a little bit interesting, because you're going to have two different types of people in skilled nursing. You're going to have people that are there for short-term stays, that are coming out of, maybe they had a stroke, or they had a heart attack or something like that, or a terrible fall, and they need short-term rehab. So they do that on site. They've got these great PT rooms, and they're there truly maybe for 30 days, maybe for 2 months, just depending on how they're recovering. And then they go home, or maybe they go into assisted living, right? The other demographic is, well, there'd be two others. One, these are super, super high level of care residents. Maybe they have trachs, right? Like they need help with breathing, or maybe they need IVs, or they truly need nursing care, like nurses around the clock. That's going to be your skilled nursing.
Okay.
And then the other demographic there is that Medicaid on a federal level generally does not pay for assisted living or memory support. Now, there are some states that have waiver programs that do that, but generally, and I'm making a big generalization, they only pay for skilled nursing. So people that are income qualified, which, you know, pretty much means if you're on Medicaid, you don't have a lot of income or assets to your name, they put them in skilled nursing, which, you know, is an area of opportunity for our government, because assisted living is so much less money than skilled nursing. But unfortunately, that's just the way the law is right now.
Okay. And so, and I know you talked last time about continuity of care, and that would be like moving from independent living to assisted living.
To memory support, to skilled, yes.
Yeah.
And I would say most residents, like if I'm looking at my mom, and where I think that she'll eventually go, it's pretty unlikely that she would need skilled care unless she had a fall or something that she needed short-term rehab for. 99% of the things that, well, maybe not 99, but a majority of the things that are done in skilled nursing can be done in assisted living and memory support with outside services,
Okay.
your PT, your OT, your home health, your hospice, which is great. So most of the residents that move into assisted living and memory support stay until end of life. But there are exceptions to the rule, and some people do need skilled long-term.
So what do you see as kind of like key dividing lines between independent living and assisted living?
So the first thing that we're going to look at is, I know it sounds strange, but it's kind of a fire code. Can you get out of a building or get to safety if there's an emergency in a fire or a tornado or an earthquake? But can you independently do that? That's going to be probably one of the first things. In independent living, residents can still receive those services. Oftentimes, independent residents have their spouses with them, so they're doing a lot of the hands-on care. You see that quite a bit. But yeah, the ability to fire codes are going to dictate that. I can tell you where I am right now. That's going to be the number one determining factor: is can they evacuate in the case of an emergency?
Okay.
Yeah.
And so is that something that is determined then by the community or by the family? Or a
Both.
combination?
It's both. And it's going to be in the agreement, and if you find that the resident is declining and they can't do that, then generally they would have, a companion that lives with them, or if it's going to be a short-term situation, then you would look at, accommodations for that. But generally, if they're, just say maybe they have another 5 years, I mean, who knows, but then they would generally go into assisted living so that they have additional staff support. The buildings are generally built differently with additional fire codes. I should say that not only the regulations, but the fire regulations for assisted living, skilled, and memory support are far higher than your independent living.
Okay. So this is something I'm sure probably not in the guidebook, but I'm going to ask you about it.
Okay.
I've heard you talk a lot about essentially the modernization of the industry and how the industry has changed. Pinpoint a couple of key things that you think, especially on the independent living and assisted living side of things, have really changed over the last 5 to 10 years that you think have really improved the lives of residents.
Yeah, I think from the design of the building, I'm just super grateful and lucky to operate the buildings that we have. But in my career, I've had buildings that are, 100 years old and aging, and they were still run really well. But those buildings that are 100 years old, the one that I had was, the heating system was literally blowing up in the walls, and there was like one guy in Wisconsin that did them in his garage. I mean, I'm not kidding. The elevators aren't wide enough to be able to fit the wheelchairs on the walkers. The rooms they're not ADA compliant. You couldn't get the doors to swing open and get a walker or wheelchair in there. So it's just not the way things were done back then. But I would say over the last 5 to 10 years, I mean, we know that the boomers are coming in droves, now and, over the next 10 years. And so, we are really trying to design for what the boomers are going to expect. They're going to expect, nice places. They've traveled the world. They've done, well in their lives, and they want places that represent their home. They want, fixtures that look like what they have at their house. They want open spaces. They want tall windows. They want to be able to access the outdoors. They don't want to have some dingy, 1-story, 8-foot ceiling with the, like it looks like a prison. Yeah, no, I mean, I want to live like that. So they are becoming much more demanding. And then as far as the operations of the building, you're not going to get away with, a tuna noodle casserole. I mean, unless they want it, that's fine. But no, you better, be able to step up and provide good dining. And the activity program, I mean, our residents love themselves some bingo, but when I need care, I'm not going to be playing bingo. So can you provide, gaming systems? Can you provide, other types of, like, pickleball is huge. So we incorporate pickleball into our programming. So you have to be able to adapt to not only what the residents want, but what their children are expecting. And the expectations are high with what you pay in rates in senior living. I get it. Like when I'm looking at my mom, I'm gonna, for the value for my dollar, I'm gonna expect a lot.
So, really quickly, and you touched on this briefly, but some of the governing bodies, especially over the assisted living side of things, just
Yeah.
real quick overview on that, because obviously that's a whole nother, I mean, we can spend hours
Weeks.
talking on that.
Assisted living is not federally governed. Skilled nursing is. So if you're talking about skilled nursing, there's one set of rules, that they have to adhere to, which in some ways is great, in other ways it's terrible, right? Because how you operate a building in, like I said, Wisconsin versus California, probably very different. So there's some limitations with that, but depending on the state, you may have the Department of Social Services, you may have the Department of Health, you may have, I don't know, every state is different in terms of governing and what those regs are. I would say, I've operated in, maybe 20 states. 90% of the rules are the same. They may have different words, they may have, some nuances to it, but they're pretty much the same regulations. But I will say that, post-COVID, the amount of oversight and scrutiny that the communities are under has increased dramatically. What we, for instance, had to chart on pre-COVID is we are being held to a much higher standard, because we're seeing that the residents are frailer, they're just coming in, with more needs. And so if we're going to be able to provide that care, not in skilled nursing, then we have to, do our part to keep them as safe as we can. As far as memory care, same thing, it would be the same governing body. Independent, in addition to that, you always have your fire departments, you have your, people that are going to inspect your kitchen, you've got, all that kind of stuff too. Over in independent living, you don't have a governing body if you're licensed and providing care. So that would be your fire departments, your health departments, those types of OSHA, that would apply for everybody, any kind of labor law. But independent living and active adults are going to have the least amount of regulations. Yeah, so that's what you would ask, is the building licensed? And that's another thing to think about too, is where is the building licensed? Because sometimes you're going to have areas of the building, like the one I'm in now, unlicensed, and some of the areas that are licensed. So you really need to be very mindful about, what rules apply to what area of the community.
Gotcha.
I know.
Oh, awesome. I feel like I've learned so much, and it's only been a few minutes.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Okay,
Great.
it'll help some people.
Well, I guess next time we'll unpack. I think we only got 3 or 4 pages in. So
right, okay, 25 to go.
Still have
okay.
25 to go. So that'll be awesome. So great.
Thank you.
Great to be with you as always. And
you too.
We will talk again soon.
Okay, sounds good.